Hey everyone, we're live, pal. Double G and Andrew Zarian back on a very, so much wrestling that I had to watch this weekend to catch up with everything. But it wasn't only the wrestling, because you know what else I had to watch? All of the NBA All-Star content. And then on Sunday night, the SNL 50th anniversary show. So many things to watch this weekend.
It was a busy weekend, busy content weekend.
Did you watch SNL?
You know what it was? I watched some clips of it. That show is so historic, and I never want it off the air, no matter how unfunny I think it is. And they go through and it's funny because somebody posted on social media, and they wrote something like along the lines of, if you ever want a great aptitude test to know how good of a comic you are, go on SNL, because no matter how creative you are, they will hinder it with terrible writing, and you still somehow come off funny.
Yeah,
and I think that's true for them, because they're all so talented. It's just, it's hit or miss. Sketch comedy is different, but they have some moments like that Diego stuff is hysterical.
Can I give you a comparison?
Give me.
I think Lorne Michaels and Vince McMahon now, not Vince McMahon the human. I hope Lorne Michaels isn't like Vince McMahon the human. But their leadership and their ownership of their products is very similar.
Very, yeah. Yeah.
And they did the skit on SNL about Lorne's best friends, which was really a shot at how maybe not nice of a guy Lorne Michaels is. It's based on his reputation.
He's a fascinating guy. Yeah.
And you could do the same thing, literally, about Vince McMahon. And I've always found that comparison relevant because both companies or both shows, SNL 50 years, WWE not quite, but in the current form. But you go back 41 years for WrestleMania. And just the stories about both guys and how domineering they are and how it's their way or the highway. Like if anybody asks Lorne, can we change this or change that? And he's like, I don't negotiate with terrorists. Like that's his answer to all
that's
those questions. Like imagine, John Cena going up to Vince and he's like, I don't want to do this hustle, loyalty, and respect. And Vince just going like, I don't negotiate with terrorists. Like go do it or find another line of work or whatever.
Or Vince says, yeah, no problem. Go out there and kill it, kid. And you come back and he fires you. He's done that too. JJ, our mod right now, JJ's modding the chat. He said, Eddie Murphy as Tracy Morgan was incredible. I could listen to Tracy Morgan talk all day. I don't care what he says. He could say the most ludicrous stuff. It's still so hysterical to me. Eddie was a great Tracy Morgan. That was a great bit.
I thought one time that I was interviewing Tracy Morgan, actually on an episode of Wrestling Observer Radio, but it was Eddie Kingston instead.
Do you know how many times I've made that joke?
Yeah.
You want to hear my good Tracy Morgan?
Okay.
You ready? Doodle Pampas. That's it.
That's
all he has to say.
Where I saw Tracy Morgan first, and I don't know if people even know that he was on this show, but the Martin Lawrence show, Martin,
fantastic show.
He played a character called Hustle Man, and his whole shtick was trying to sell people like things that like really didn't exist, and it was Hustle Man. And I was like, I wonder who this guy is. And then I saw him. Really, 30 Rock is where he kind of takes off.
SNL.
SNL
really.
Too, but I think 30 Rock is where people really start recognizing his brilliance. All right,
we know the Martin theme song. Do you remember it? Do you remember what the lyrics were?
I just remember Ma in.
And I believe it was just repeating "Happy and you're pregnant." I don't know if that's true. That's honestly what I thought as a kid. That he is going happy and you're pregnant, happy and you're pregnant. It could be not. It could not. Most likely it's not.
I hope not. I really hope not. So that we're not only going to talk about SNL. I just thought that was an interesting comparison between Saturday Night Live
No,
at
no, no.
50.
We're talking about all the 90s shit. We're going to talk about House of Buggin' with John Leguizamo. We're talking about In Living Color.
In Living Color. There you go. But there was something pop culture related that I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a podcast, Bill Simmons and Van Lathan. They were talking about the Drake and Kendrick feud. And because, we go back to Jay-Z and Nas, Biggie and Tupac. Like those are the big ones of our lifetime. I can even go back a little bit further with Kool Mo D and LL Cool J, though I was really a little kid back then.
Yeah.
But Van Lathan made an interesting observation, which I think related to wrestling. So I wanted to ask you about this.
Yeah.
So basically he described tribalism without using the word tribalism. He essentially compared the Kendrick or Drake fandom being completely split based on which artists you prefer, and the fans drawing the line because if you can't like both based off of the current scenario, like you cannot like Kendrick and then still be cool with Drake, because if you're cool with Drake, then you really do not understand what Kendrick is standing for. And I thought it was interesting because he said it's kind of like Democrats and Republicans, which is heavily tribalism. And then I thought from a pro wrestling perspective, we have the current WWE and AEW, but when you and I were younger, it was WCW and WWE. And what he sort of came to the conclusion about was that he believes hip hop culture is changed forever because of this scenario that has been created, which is you have to like one guy or the other guy and you can't like both. And he believes that it's changed the culture, and it actually has made the culture worse because of the split in the fandom. And so I wanted to relate it to wrestling because I sort of feel the same way. I've been having these conversations almost all weekend long about WWE and AEW. And I basically said, like, when I was a kid, I was a fan of WWF. Like Hulk Hogan was my guy. But I also learned a lot about the NWA and then WCW. And I saw Ric Flair and I was like, this guy's really cool. And, all Sting and the Steiner brothers. And so you learn to like both of them. And if you asked me which was my favorite, I would have probably said WWF up until about 1996. And then I thought WCW was just way better. But then it turns again with Austin. And then I would have said WWF in late 97, early 98. But I would have never said I like WWF, and thus, because I like WWF, I hate WCW. And today, I see that a lot. I like AEW, and because I like what AEW stands for, and I do not like what WWE stands for, I cannot like WWE. And vice versa. WWE fans take shots at AEW fans all the time. And so I wondered about the current wrestling culture, and do you think it is going to be like this forever, where every fan is sort of split? Now, I call myself wrestling agnostic. I do not pray at the altar of Triple H or Tony Khan. I don't give a shit who wins. I just want both companies around, and I want both companies to do good business and tell good stories because the overall business is better for it. But do you think our pro wrestling culture is fractured forever because of the current mindset?
I think any kind of rabid fandom or anything that allows the creation of that, naturally, I'm not saying that they force it, will always suffer from this. I think we will always have this. For a long time, we'll have this. I think what the difference here is, Garrett, you and I, right? We're very different because we are multi-generational when it comes to pro wrestling. Mm-hmm. We started in the 80s and we're still here. That doesn't really exist much. But I'm gonna come back to that. But you look at comic books, Marvel versus DC. That was a big thing. Are you a DC fan or are you a Marvel fan? I grew up hearing that constantly. DC's boring, Marvel's exciting. I think that exists with any kind of fandom. But with wrestling, this is a very unique thing that we've experienced. We are probably the last and possibly only generation that will that came up in a time that there were multiple promotions out there, to there being two major ones on TV, to being only one for about 20 years, one competitor. You had TNA, but TNA was never presented in that big picture way. AEW at least was. We saw the territories go away. We saw the big two. We saw the big one for 20 years, and that created an entire generation of fans that have never, ever consumed any other wrestling other than WWE, because that is wrestling. Do you remember those commercials that USA took out years ago? And the guy was he was, I don't know, he was a barista, or he was whatever. He was like a normal person. And he's like, I'm not a fan of wrestling. I'm a fan of WWE. Well, of course you're not a fan of wrestling. You're a fan of WWE because that's the only thing you've grown up consuming for 20 years.
Yeah.
How could you, also the access to magazines, how do you discover something else? I discovered it from the magazines, going down to Virginia, to Richmond, Virginia, to visit my father's friend. And we would stop at a truck stop or whatever. And I would see Ric Flair bleeding all over the place. And I'm saying, as a kid, I'm like, who the hell is this guy? That's not Hulk Hogan. That's not the Ultimate Warrior. So an entire generation was brought up with having this one system, one party belief when it came to wrestling. Yeah, other things were there, not really on there. And again, we are the anomaly. You, myself, the audience here, just 200 people watching. We are the anomaly. We are ones that consume it all. Most people are fans of just whatever's on. And unfortunately for pro wrestling and the history of pro wrestling, one company took over everything. Now, what happened with AEW? AEW starts up. It becomes cool. It's the new religion in town. It's the new commune you could join. And people jumped over. They went over to that ship for a little bit. And then, whatever happened, they either, for a multitude of reasons. One, they weren't as committed to pro wrestling as they thought they were. Two, it got boring for them. Three, the excitement ran. Four, life changed, and the numbers started dwindling. But this is one of the only generations that I would say, in any real, as far as a spectrum of live sports go and fight sports go, this is the only time, I would say, 20-year period that we only had one company for exposure. And that changes how people consume wrestling. You talk to people from an older generation, and those wars that we talk about, like, people didn't walk around. If you were a wrestling fan, for example, you weren't saying like, again, how do I know? Actually, I'm talking this out loud, and I'm like, how the hell do I know? I was a baby then. But were people saying like, F Crockett, I'm a Mid-South guy?
Well, so what's interesting is
I don't think so.
I'm reading the 84 Observers, and
I have it right here. I have them right behind me.
There is, now this is also Dave's readership.
Yeah.
There is an from the readers, there is an anti WWF, their readers writing in, like, a lot of the comments are just anti WWF. One, because they see what the future is going to be with the WWF domination. And two, WWF back then was not really about action, So if you were a in-ring fan, WWF was more than likely not your cup of tea. But there were definitely fans of different companies who recognized WWF for what they were doing and why they thought they would be successful, but definitely anti them taking over the zeitgeist.
And I could see WWE will always have that, because they 1984 WWF was changing the foundation of pro wrestling.
Yeah.
By the way, there's a great series. I don't know if you've checked it out. It's called Historically Speaking. Have I sent you this?
I don't know.
It's fantastic. It is a deep dive, I guess, tell-all of prior to 84. So every week is a different story. So one was how the FBI was partially responsible for the creation of WWF.
Oh, wow.
And it has to do with a government investigation into somebody that was connected, or how football was the cause for national wrestling. I mean, I'm going to send you a link. If you
Is
are
it a
into
podcast?
the history, it is. It's a video and audio podcast. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's
cool.
done really, really well. It's on YouTube. I saw it on good YouTube. So I would definitely recommend checking it out if you're into the history of stuff. But WWF came up in a very unique time, and they broke all the rules, and they exposed the facade of professional wrestling. So I could see how people hated it, and I could see how people hated the style. It was, the Bruno era wasn't about work rate, really. I mean, and to be honest, he was the best, one of the best at the time. But that promotion was about larger than life, being in the Garden, being in the Boston Garden, being at the Spectrum, and selling those things out.
So it's funny that you brought up kind of the origin story of AEW, because I think that origin story happens, like you mentioned, like there's this new religion or this new commune. WWE had pissed off so many fans with the creative and with speaking down to their customers that there was a number of people who were like, okay, I'm done with this. I need something else. And AEW capitalized on that in a very smart way, by the way. And so this podcast that you're talking about, historically speaking, I just clicked on it, and they got is it 11 episodes that I saw? Matt Ryan is yelling. Is that the channel? Is that the right one?
That's it.
Okay.
Yep.
Matt Ryan is yelling. Okay. I'm going to subscribe to this, and I'll check some of this stuff out. But no, it's, one thing that I'm actually going to be doing, and this is somewhere in the near future. I have an idea for a wrestling rewatch podcast. Now, there's all of these different rewatch shows that you can, looking over old shows. Everyone does it, right? It's part of the podcast universe. And I have a different idea because I'm a fan of Bill Simmons' show, The Rewatchables, and how he digs through movies. I think it's a really fun pop culture way that he goes through these movies. Now, I can't steal the idea. It's not my idea. But I am going to take some pieces of it and kind of go back to the very first Double or Nothing. And I was there. Were you at the very first Double or Nothing?
I wasn't at the first one, no.
Okay. So there's so many things that I remember about that time period, especially going to the pre-sale ticket party. I've told some of those stories. But I'm going back through that time frame. So I'm going back through those old observers. And that time frame was ripe for the picking, because you remember that WWE tries to lock down Madison Square Garden so that the ROH New Japan show can't happen WrestleMania weekend.
Yeah.
And then they, Madison Square Garden basically has to cave and allow the ROH and New Japan show. And they immediately sell out, and they become the first company in the U.S. outside of WWE to draw $100 million or to draw a $1 million gate.
Yeah.
And that was only 6 years ago.
And so the business was shifting them. It was totally
right. It was ready for an alternative. ROH New Japan, and some of those tickets I think we can agree on were the Kenny Omega, Cody Rhodes, Young Bucks side of things. And those guys actually don't even end up on the show.
Yeah.
Also around, even a little bit before that, is the very first All In, which happens and is allowed to succeed because WWE's leaving the back door open because their creative is so bad and people are so frustrated with what they're doing. And so, it's just fun to look back and think about it. And I'm interested to have this conversation again in a couple years to see if the culture is similar. Did we have a super chat, by the way?
We did have a super chat. Yeah. We have a super chat here. Pro Wrestling Joker.
That's my guy.
14 Canadian. Thank you very much. Where is
it says, as far as the tribalism goes, I think the fact that AEW and WWE taking shots at each other early on really created a lot of fans hating the other side. Now, if we're going to be honest, at the beginning, it was WWE taking shots.
The pissing company, yeah.
And then AEW kind of had to fight back a little bit so that they didn't get
But listen,
eaten up.
even before that company started, though, right? Even before AEW launched, remember, even before their first show on TV.
Yep.
I mean, listen, I was very in this, right? At that time, I was very deep in this. We were talking about the deal with Turner. And people, when I spoke about this and I said, I'm hearing, I mean, that was one of like the first ones that like I got news on that like I wasn't really reporting anything. I just would talk about it. People thought I was insane. There's no way they're going on Turner. There's no way, there's no way, there's no way. They're a t-shirt company. Oh, that t-shirt company, this is even before all of that. So people get very angry when sometimes they are told, hey, there's another thing here. It might be better than what you like. People don't like that. And it just, I could get into this with you. I mean, listen, you are into tech. You are into this. I am. My opinion on anonymity on the internet has totally changed. Okay, based on how I've had to deal with lunatics. I never thought I was one that was anti-anonymity on the internet. I have become a real advocate of this. This is crazy. Some of this stuff is really crazy and dangerous. And listen, I'm not going into misinformation. I'm not going into hurting people's feelings. I'm saying sending someone their address and their wife's address and telling them, I know your wife leaves, her job at this time and I'll be there. That is crazy stuff.
Wait, this sounds like an AEW angle. You're talking about real life.
I'm talking about real life. I mean, that's a great AEW angle. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, I did. Wasn't that the Swerve telling Hangman?
Swerve.
Like he
Swerve,
knew when his
yeah, Swerve was following me.
Maybe that's the moral of that story. This was basically AEW.
Don't do this in real life.
Yeah, don't do this in real life, because if you do, then your house gets burned down.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, I think the tribalism will always be there. It's just the hope is that people are far more educated and intelligent as we mature as a society, that they could handle things like, hey, maybe this isn't for me. I'm just going to let people enjoy whatever the fuck they want to enjoy rather than crapping all over it. Listen, I watch WWE. I like WWE. I like it a lot. There are moments that they do some incredible things. There are other moments that I look back and I sit there and I watch an entire episode or a pay-per-view and I say, what am I doing watching this thing? Okay? That happens a lot. Less now with the shift in that company and how they're presenting things. But I really believe that you need to be able to distinguish. To enjoy something, you have to distinguish what you like and what you don't like. And if you don't like something, stop watching it. And don't talk about it. Why do you need to talk about it? Why do you need to watch? Why do you need to tell people that they shouldn't like it? It's just a cultural thing. This conversation goes off to 5,000 things. Like, are we really intended to be a globalized society? And my answer is no, we're not. Because you can't even handle what's happening down the block. How the hell are you going to handle what's happening in Lyon, France?
Mm-hmm.
So I have all these opinions on this, but I think as far as tribalism goes, it'll always be there. We won't ever change it. And you also have an entire generation of wrestling fans that have watched something for 20 years without any real competition or anybody telling you that this is real competition. They tried it with TNA and look how TNA ended up.
The only thing I'll say, and we'll move on right after this, which is, I think wrestling fans, like you said, should be smarter. I would hope that we're smarter. I would hope that there's some evolution of, intelligence or whatever. But if you get sucked in to this WWE versus AEW stuff, you're doing work for both of these companies without getting paid. Like, you're doing free PR for these folks. Yeah. And really, what you should be doing is you should pull back and just look at where the pro wrestling industry is. If we go back 6 years, WWE's creative, though their business was fantastic, their creative was in the tank, and they were leaving this back door open for another company to come in. But if you go back 6 years and you go, okay, what's the reason why WWE is better now, or really on fire now? Well, the reason is because AEW came along and they had to get their shit together. AEW's numbers were looking really good compared to the amount of publicity and visibility they had, and WWE's by comparison. So what you want, if you are a fan of WWE, what you want to continue to make this product grow and to make this product hot is you want AEW to be successful, because that's the fire that's going to light underneath WWE's ass to continue to do great work. Because the second there's no AEW, then we go back to 2004 and 2005 and 2006 and 2007.
WWE's argument is, listen, we've given you, look at all the options we've created for you. We have NXT. We have, now we have that Evolve show. You have Raw, you have SmackDown, you have your pay-per-views, you have your Evolve, you have NXT, you have TNA. Look, we work with TNA. We love TNA now. They're great. So in their minds, you have all the options in the world. What are you complaining about?
I don't know, man. My complaint is, if all of wrestling looks and talks and smells and feels like WWE, we are losing in the culture of what wrestling can be. Not what it should be, what it can be, the options, the differences. This is why the indies in 2015, 16, 17 kind of made a big comeback. It's because it gave the fans something different and something that they wanted that WWE wasn't giving them. And so if you want WWE to stay at a high level, you want AEW and other wrestling, by the way, to be competitive. Yeah. You want New Japan to make a little bit of a comeback in the US, because they're making some gains, back in Japan with some of the things, Goto winning the title and them selling tons of tickets to see that show. Like, it just you can sort of feel the bubbling a little bit, especially in they're working on some younger folks too. But that's it. I just thought it was an amazing thing, because the thing about you and I, we're not just wrestling fans. We're fans of lots of different cultures and pop culture and stuff. So when I can find something in kind of a different culture or different reality, and I can bring it back to pro wrestling, I think it just makes for fascinating conversation and gives people stuff to think about. So, okay. Can we talk about Grand Slam Australia?
Yeah, let's do it.
What did you think of that show?
I thought it was very good. I thought it was a really good show. Wrestling was good. It was nice and quick. The ring, people were very upset about the ring. A janky 18 by 18 ring.
Poor Buddy Matthews.
Poor Buddy Matthews. What did he said that he a floorboard came loose?
I couldn't tell if he was joking and like making fun of the thing, or if that was really what happened to him. Because if it was really what happened to him, then they should figure out what the heck was going on with that ring.
They didn't want to bring a ring over. It's expensive. And somebody wrote to me that there's like no 20-foot rings in Australia. And it's like one guy that makes them.
Yeah.
And he told me the cost and everything of it. Yeah, I think he was joking. But, I mean, I thought it was a good show. I mean, was there any negative?
I think the negative was the Moxley and Copeland match.
The finish. The match was fine. The finish was bad.
I thought the finish sucked. I don't know. I have absolutely no idea what they're doing, because now the only thing that they did is now Moxley versus Copeland at Revolution. Is it the 5th most important match on that show? Like, when it comes to what people are looking forward to, like, clearly I want to see Omega and Takeshita more. Clearly I want to see Ospreay and Fletcher more. If they redo Tony Storm and Mariah May, I'm more interested in that match than I am in Mox and Cope based on that finish.
And who's Okada wrestling?
Yeah, whoever Okada wrestles.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just think they really diminished what was already a cold main event scene just with that finish.
Yeah,
like I didn't understand it. I would like to know somebody who thinks that was actually a good finish, and I would like to hear their reasoning, because I can't think of one.
I mean, is it a good finish if Copeland's winning the title?
I guess, but that decision has even more problems, I think, because there's no colder main eventer in wrestling right now than Adam Copeland. And I think he's doing a fine job, but I just don't think the fan base wants to see this 50-year-old WWE guy who wants to put edge in every part of his name as the champion.
This is my personal opinion on this. By the way, everybody thinks I'm having a drink. This is actually one of those hop waters.
I love it.
It's not. I just in a wine glass because I didn't have anything large enough, and it was a big bottle. So I poured it in this. It's no alcohol, unfortunately. I wish it was.
Mine neither. I have a Liquid Death Killer Cola flavor. It's only
how is the cola? I know those guys too.
It's only two carbs, so it kind of works. And it's just a heavy agave flavor. It's actually kind of refreshing. I like it.
So I don't mind Adam Copeland winning the title. But what's your plan once that happens? Like, I don't want it to be he wins, Christian cashes in, Christian has the title, then that's the next program.
Right.
I don't like that at all. But if you're going to have him win the title and you're going to have it lead to a unique match that we haven't seen, have Hangman come in there and beat him for the title. Have Max come in there, beat him for the title. Have somebody. I want to see a unique match. That's a positive I see here. I don't think he's going to be a flagship guy. I don't think he's going to be the guy that carries you through the year, but I don't know where they're going to go with this because the Mox thing's not working. Whether or not this was always the plan or they had to change plans because something didn't work out. The title has not been shown on TV since World's End, which is so bizarre that you're not showing your world championship on television.
Did you like Moxley's reasoning for keeping the title in the little briefcase?
What was it? I remind me.
It was because he holds it near and dear to his heart, and no one else deserves it, and he wants to protect it with everything and all of his blood, sweat, and tears. And
I get it.
Okay,
I mean that's a fine reason, but you're still doing a TV show, and you need to sell merch. You need to sell. So
here's kind of a. The Observer Awards came out, and I think the Observer Awards are a good indicator on kind of what worked and what didn't in the singular year. You just look up and down the winners and losers. Jon Moxley has won the Observer Award for was the Lou Thez Award, I think, like multiple times.
Yeah.
This year, 2024, I think he was like number 6 most overrated.
And I don't think that's accurate. That's true.
I don't think that's accurate either. I would not say that he's overrated actually at all. I would say that this current storyline sucks, and maybe the Death Riders gimmick is probably overstayed its welcome by a lot. But it just shows you the wrestling fan base being reactive to something that they feel like the Death Riders is being shoved down their throat, and Tony Khan should be a little bit more receptive to what the fans are telling him, right? I mean, that's what WWE fans hated about Vince McMahon forever. Like, this thing doesn't work. Why do you keep doing it?
Yeah, I think because they have a goal to get to, and they need to get to that goal so the other things happen, without exposing TV or anything. But who's gotten over? Marina. I think she looks incredible.
Has she wrestled in a match?
No, but I think she looks incredible. Doing that role.
Yeah, Moxley has liked her in that style because she's got a real background. Like he's been trying to figure out a way to showcase her for a long time. So this is what it is. Look, it's a one-note character, but it's cool. And the problem is the second she talks, or the second she's got to wrestle, or if she doesn't just blow through who she's wrestling, then we'll see what happens. But yeah, I would like to see what the ideas are for her.
Yeah. I don't know. I hope they pivot a little bit from there. But the show, I mean, overall, that show was the Kenny tag match was fantastic.
You know what I liked about it the most?
What?
Can I tell you is
yeah.
So I liked the match. I mean, it was kind of surprising because the baby faces took almost the whole thing, and then they ended up winning. I was with my kid So we were in San Francisco all day long because that's where the NBA All-Star stuff was. It was in San Francisco. So we were kind of doing a lot of the shoulder stuff out there. We went to like a live podcast. You can see my shirt, the Real Ones, the Ringer podcast with Raja and Logan Murdoch and Howard Beck. So we were there hanging out, all basketball, and then the All-Star 3-point shootout and dunk contest. We went to a bar to see that because it was like $1,500 to get in. I was like, I'm not paying $1,500 to get in the nosebleeds to watch some people dunk. But then in the bar, after the basketball stuff was over, then the AEW show started. And so my kid, who grew up, he's been to multiple WrestleManias. He's tailed off as a wrestling fan way more into UFC, but he's been getting back into WWE a little by little. He watched the Royal Rumble. I think he's going to try and watch the Chamber. And this will make you smile because you've been touting this forever. But how he got back into it was through TikTok. His TikTok timeline has all of a sudden become a lot of the wrestling stuff from his youth. So he gets the memories from that. And then it's sprinkled in with some new stuff. So that's kind of how he got interested in it again, is through TikTok. So he's watching the AEW show. He has no idea who anybody is. He's never seen Ospreay before. He's never seen Omega before. He's like, who's this kid who looks like Randy Orton? I was like, oh, that's Kyle Fletcher. And never saw Takeshita. So as he's watching, I'm just kind of watching him and how he reacts to it. And he loved Ospreay. He thought Ospreay was awesome. He's like, wow, this guy is amazing. And he really liked Ospreay and Fletcher back and forth. So I basically watching this show with this different audience, like no one else in the bar was even paying attention. It was just us because we were wrestling fans. But the idea that this show came off of the All-Star game and hopefully generated some eyeballs, I thought that was the perfect first match to put. But then, and this is later in the show, my favorite thing was Omega and Ospreay kind of hanging out in the back, being babyface superstars.
Yeah.
Will Ospreay even called himself Babyface Billy. Now, I'm not sure. Omega kind of looks annoyed at him as Ospreay is doing everything to sort of earn his love or whatever. Like Omega is kind of like side-eyeing him a little bit. So I don't know what that's all about. But that is where they need to go with these dudes. It's like, we have baby faces. They're over. Here are your heroes. Let's push these guys and let's get them back into the main programs. But at least it sounds like through Revolution, we're going to be stuck in, the same matches essentially that we're seeing. So there's no movement that way. Maybe after Revolution there will be. But that was my favorite thing about the show was two baby faces, the two top wrestlers possibly in the company, and we're getting behind them and we're showing people that these are cool guys. Like that's what AEW needs. They need cool guys, and those are your cool guys. And so hopefully we'll see more of that because that was what I liked the most about the whole show.
Yeah, I hope they could continue with this. Unfortunately, I think the story of the show kind of overtook the actual show. I will say this, okay? Because I spoke to someone at Max, and they were pleased with whatever they saw. They were very happy with, and this was an experiment, obviously, because they put it on after the NBA, and not because of choice, because of oversight, most likely, because they scrambled with this. But I was told that they will be doing more of these. I don't know what that means
specials,
exactly.
You mean?
I don't know if it's a Grand Slam special. I don't know what they're going to call. I don't know anything regarding name, but this was originally the idea of Battle of the Belts.
Mm-hmm.
It was supposed to be like a Clash level show where you would see a title change and you have some big important matches on.
Right.
I would anticipate, based on what he told me, that we're going to get more of these. And I mean, listen, does it hurt you in any way? No, I don't think this hurt the pay-per-view. You had some really big matches on here. Really, the match qualities were different. The wrestling was different. You did it in 2 hours, and you put on a banger of a 2-hour block. They want to do that again. They want to do more. Remember, this was originally going to be 3 hours.
Yeah. How many pay-per-views are they running this year, by the way?
Grand Slam would have been one. Grand Slam would have been one.
So I think we're like at 9 or 10 or something, right? Because I think I think in the non pay-per-view months, which there aren't many anymore, you should do a show like this because it helps with your storytelling. Because if your whole goal is to kind of peak every 4 weeks or every 5 weeks or whatever, you can use this on free TV to be your peak for that month. And then, it keeps you on a nice cadence instead, because sometimes, with AEW TV, when you would have a lot of weeks in between pay-per-views, like nothing of significance would happen. And then they would pack everything into like the last 2 weeks before the pay-per-view. So I think this could help them from a cadence perspective. And if it is kind of a Clash-like special, and if it is as good as Grand Slam was, I think this will be great because fans do not have to pay for it, which is good, which is always good. And I just think that they should utilize Max a little bit more, a little bit better, a little bit more at the forefront.
I think they're going to. It's just right now, the pay-per-view functionality is still not there. And I think once that pay-per-view functionality happens, it would allow them to do more of these. Like here, Craig, and he goes, Grand Slam was never a pay-per-view. It never ended up being it was going to be a Max special. It was going to be on Max. But, circumstances happened. That was the goal. That was the show. So I don't know why, there was such oversight on some of these things. But listen, the crowd loved it. They'll probably go to a better place. They'll go to Melbourne, or they'll go.
And they're
to
coming
Sydney
back next
time.
year. Yeah,
they're going back in 2026. So they'll get to do this again, and I think it'll be a better operation. The second time you go around, but AEW's trying things and they're expanding. We've seen what they've done with their regular shows. They're in unique, smaller venues. Like exactly, what the trajectory shifted when they started selling those 10,000 people buildings out, and that was the beginning of that because they never. Yeah. I don't think Tony went in this because of he's great at risk assessment. I think he thought he could do 4,000, 3,000, 2,000, 6,000, 8,000, depending on the market. But when they were hotter than anybody anticipated when they started. Really hot. And they got stuck to those big venues, and now you got to start over. But it seems like they're figuring it out. They're running smaller, nice, unique venues, and people are into it.
And it's a little bit of an ego thing, right? Like all of a sudden you outgrow your expectation and you're running similar buildings that WWE would run, which was not what you had sort of projected out because you're doing better. And you're doing better. And you're doing better in some markets. And then so you grow into that. You're like, oh, we're in the, we're in the major leagues of the arena business now. And then it stops working. And you have to admit that you have to go back. Like that's a hard thing to do for any leader who wants to be successful, and commend him for it. Not running these empty big buildings just because when you go into a city and the media is like, oh, where are they running? Oh yeah, they're running like the NBA arena, though they must be kind of a big thing. Like I don't know if the media is checking ticket sales, and so that makes the story bigger to the local media. But if you're now running, they book some like a symphony or some small theater in Boston, and it's like, they're running the place that, any small event that comes through runs. And so maybe they're not as big of a story to the local media. So that's like a hit. That's definitely a hit. And I commend Tony for kind of realizing that and dealing with it and making sure that the TV product was first and foremost. It took him a little while, and still, Collision is coming out here the same day as Elimination Chamber. and they're running the Oakland Coliseum, and I've been to Oakland Coliseum for wrestling events, and they're, 13,000, 15,000 in there. No, there's going to be like 3,000 people in this building, and it's going to look bad. So I don't know why he did that, but that's so that for whatever reason, I'm sure he just got like a great deal on the building or whatever. So
on the Oakland Coliseum.
Yeah, the Oakland Coliseum where the Warriors used to play.
Yeah, where the Warriors played. Yeah. Interesting. They won't. I mean, what are they going to? Maybe 4,000, 5,000 tops.
The last time we went was a Collision. I can't remember if it was live or if it was taped. It may have been like a Friday night taped for Saturday, or maybe it was a live Rampage and taped Collision, and I was bored out of my mind because there was no energy in the audience whatsoever. And and then Dave, I asked Dave what he was like. I've seen wrestling in this building a million times, and a lot of times it is like that, so it didn't bother me at all. But obviously, Dave is a different level of wrestling fan than just about anybody. So yeah, it's good on them. But I guess the other thing that I would say, based on what you just talked about with Max, is, and this is just me asking you a question, if you have any idea why it works this way. Mm-hmm. So Grand Slam, my DVR missed the last match completely. Yeah. Like for whatever reason, it didn't even record the normal 2 hours of Collision. It only recorded 90 minutes. So I go to Max and I click open Max, not on the front page in any way. There is, I do have the AEW video on demand channel in like the My Stuff. So that is there, but the Grand Slam show is not in that bucket, because that is for the shows that they eventually take the commercials out of. So that's like on a week delay. Yeah. So then I had to click on the BR Sports tab, and then I had to scroll and look for live event replays, and then finally I was able to find
the app. The app is wacky.
Because I had people reach out to me and go, "I'm so mad I forgot to record Collision, and thus I can't watch it on Max because they only showed it live." I was like, "No, it's there. You just have to dig. Like just go to the BR Sports tab and search, and you'll find it." That they're not making it easy for AEW fans to find this content, by the way. So just I didn't know. I just don't know why it works that way.
Their wacky system, whatever that is that they're using.
And I also don't know why it takes them a full week to pull the commercials out of the show. Is that...
I don't know either.
Is that because cable doesn't want them to do that? Like cable, like if you take the commercials immediately out of the show the next day, then the people will rather watch it on their Max than on the DVR. I'm wondering if it's something like that.
I don't know.
Like, or fans will just be like, I don't have to watch it live. I'm just going to watch the Max replay because the commercials will be gone, and they want you to actually watch it live on cable, because this relationship between Max and the simulcast and the cable companies is, the cable companies are not like, "Oh, we'd love it when you guys do this." Like they're like, no, but they don't have as much leverage as they used to, so they kind of have to concede and make some concessions. So yeah, I was just wondering. I would love to know the politics behind that, because putting the non-commercial events up a week later, the show's done. The show's already passed. Like, why would anyone watch it at that point? Unless you want to watch it again, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
Strange.
No, go ahead.
No, it's strange. I don't know why they do it that way. But I had the same problem. I had it on DVR, but it missed part of it. I went on and I couldn't find it and I didn't even realize you could find it on that side, on the BR side.
That's where I immediately go, because I know I'll find it there rather than searching around in other spots.
Yeah.
So the last 10 minutes of this show, I just wanted to go through the Elimination Chamber, because the matchups are set. And this show is in less than 2 weeks, so it's coming up soon. We have the Men's Chamber. actually like this chamber. I like all of the wrestlers in this chamber. John Cena, who I'm guessing is the favorite. CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, so we'll rekindle some of that. Logan Paul, Damian Priest, and Seth Rollins. Like that is a high level quality of wrestling match outside of Cena, but Cena's there for different reasons than the wrestling aspect. So it's really, really strong men's match there, which, I mean, we're thinking Cena wins this one, right?
Unless there's something weird goes on that sets him up for a match. I mean, here's a question. Who's Cody's opponent? What's the best match for him at WrestleMania?
The best match?
Yeah.
The best match is probably Punk or Roman. But that doesn't seem to be the story that they're telling.
Yeah, so
Jacob Fatu, even based on the SmackDown reaction.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be Cena. It has to be Cena.
I think so.
And Cena wins? Cody takes a couple months off?
Be interesting. I will say this, and I actually wanted to get your thoughts on this too, which is I feel like the road to WrestleMania is kind of been boring so far. Like these shows have not been popping in the way that I sort of felt like last year's road to WrestleMania has, and maybe it'll kickstart with the Chamber, but also some of these rumored matches. Out of all the outcomes, Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins versus CM Punk, was that your number one outcome for the Royal Rumble?
No, I'm actually surprised they went there. I don't think anybody who was that match for? Right? I'm not talking about the fans. I'm saying like I don't understand how they got there. You know what I mean? Like it was very convoluted. They started fighting in the Rumble and then they started battling outside. And what it really did was set up Seth and Roman more than anything else. And I guess through association, now Punk's involved.
And maybe and so we have this favor, right? The Paul Heyman favor.
And then you have the favor. Yeah.
And I just assumed that the favor, and maybe it will still be, would be around the world title. Roman being outside of the world title program and just in a match with Seth. And they could always say, we're basing it, you can always tell the story of the Shield because Roman destroyed Seth with the chair in last year's main event, right? Against Cody. Didn't he drill Seth and kill him dead? Mm-hmm. So they could do some pretty cool storytelling. You have Paul Heyman, obviously, to connect all the dots, which is awesome. Punk and Seth, they already wrapped their thing up on that Netflix debut.
Yeah.
So what is the reason to get them together? And they haven't really told the Punk Roman story yet. So that I'm just, maybe we have a long time to go, so maybe they will heat that thing up. But based on the outcomes and based off of our own fantasy booking, I don't know if I would have put that one together as like, oh, this is the thing that I can't wait to see.
Yeah, I'm not that psyched for it, but maybe there's something else that gets injected in this, I don't know if maybe they were waiting to find out what Dwayne was doing. I mean, we know that he's probably not doing. He'll probably be there, but he's not wrestling in a match. Maybe that derailed their plans,
Speaking of SNL, I kind of thought he was going to be on the SNL thing, but he wasn't. Yeah, he was in one clip. There was one clip of him, but I thought maybe he would be like in a skit or something. Like they would bring back the Rock Obama or something. But nope, no Dwayne. Even though, did you see Triple H? He tweeted. He's like wanted something about recognizing The Rock as the first ever pro wrestler to host Saturday Night Live, and then the Twitter note corrected him, and they're like, "Nope, it was actually Hulk Hogan in 1985." It was Hogan,
yeah, with Mr. T.
Yeah, so Triple H got note corrected on his own tweet.
That's terrible.
Okay, so let's talk about the Women's Chamber here because that is also set. Liv Morgan, Bianca Belair, Alexa Bliss, Bailey. Bailey has been everywhere.
She's most valuable player.
Yeah, gosh. So she was in I think what was she was in the Bay Area on Friday for the Celebrity Game. Flew all the way to DC to be on the NXT show, and then flew back to be back at the All-Star Game on Sunday.
Wow. That's actually very impressive.
It's insane, her schedule. And then Naomi, and then the last one was Roxanne Perez beating Raquel to be the 6th person in that match. So this match is to set up the match with Rhea Ripley, because Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair already called Tiffany Stratton's name. So where are we going here? Who's going to win this match against Rhea Ripley?
I mean, I don't think it's Bailey. Right?
Yeah, I don't think so either. Because she's also been losing a little bit. Well, at least on NXT she lost.
Yeah, let's see. Who's in here? It's not going to be Roxanne.
Do they stipulation up Liv Morgan again? I don't see that that's all that interesting.
Well, here's my question, right? Remember, they're playing into that who ran Jade over.
Yeah.
Right? And what was the outcome of that? Who did they think it was?
Liv and Raquel.
But is it?
No, I think we all think it was like Naomi or Bianca.
Yeah. So maybe that plays a part in this. You know, I don't know. What if... I mean, you got Liv, you got Bianca, you got Alexa, you got Bailey, you got Naomi, and Roxanne Perez. Roxanne is not going to win it. You're left with, is Alexa Bliss the person? I can't see that, because I think they're going to probably do something with the Wyatts with her.
The best match is Bianca. Clearly Bianca.
The best
but that's
match
not
is Bianca,
necessarily.
But
it's not where the story has been going. So the build
so it's either,
is not there.
It's is Liv or Bailey.
Yeah.
And I think Liv winning, I mean, you could do it again. It's been fine, but is that a WrestleMania match?
Bailey got her title win last year at WrestleMania, so they don't really need to tell that story again.
Yeah.
Out of those, if like, let's say Bianca wins and she and Rhea have a badass match at WrestleMania, and somehow Naomi helps her turn heel and win the belt from Rhea, and then all of a sudden Jade comes out and basically points the finger at the both of them, and then you have this Rhea and Jade versus Naomi and Bianca. That's not a great creative scenario, but it's not the worst one either from what I see.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where they're going to go. I mean, Rhea's fantastic, so I know it's probably going to be a decent match, whoever it is, but I don't know if there's any like big WrestleMania story here so far.
Yeah, I don't see one either.
Yeah.
And maybe at the last minute, poor Bailey gets taken out of the match, and hey, I see. Is Becky here? I heard she was going to be here.
Oh my God! And they bring her in.
No, I hope they don't do that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are on that road to WrestleMania.
Yeah,
and we are on that road to Revolution too, because March 1st is it March 1st? I think it's March 1st is the Elimination Chamber, and then the following weekend is Revolution. So this is going to be 2 fun weekends of big shows. And but last thing before we get out of here, do you have any intention of watching LFG?
Yeah, I'll watch it. It's Evolve.
No, the 2 different shows.
Oh, LFG, the one with Bubba. The one with Bubba's yelling at everybody. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch it. I want to check it out. It's What's fascinating is that everybody there is already signed to a deal.
I know.
So,
it's so stupid. It's so stupid.
I don't get it, but I guess this is who's the champion of the NILs. And get out of my ring. That's my ring now. You're going to hear all that.
Yeah. All right. That is it for here. So I want to thank producer John for getting this thing all set up, and also thank Andrew for being on and doing a fun hour of wrestling talk.
Always a blast.
All right. So for Andrew, I'm Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.